Okay, this is going to get a little bit tricky. Okay, so we have some horizontal shift here. So what I know for A is that this is going to look just like my cosine graph, but it's going to be shifted pi units to the right. So I'm going to label my axes the way I normally do, right? We have 2 pi and pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2, right? The period is still 2 pi. And the sinusoidal axis is as it is, so I'm going to call this 1, I'm going to call this -1. But I'm going to be starting my normal sign, I'm going to be starting it at pi. And then I'm going to follow the normal routine. Hands on hips, touch your toes, going in the other direction, right? It's always sort of that motion. And one thing I'm going to notice here, I'm going to say that this is curious because it looks like negative cosine of x, and that in fact makes sense, because if x is some angle measure and then we have x minus pi, we're really going in that direction. So we're situated right over here, so certainly my cosine, right, my first coordinate here is going to be the opposite of the first coordinate over here. Okay, B is getting tricky again. So I know that the amplitude of this is going to be 2, so I'm going to label my y-axis. This goes up to 2, down to -2. The period hasn't changed. So a few things to notice is that my period, and I'm going to say my period here is going to be 360 degrees because we're using degrees here. But I know that we're going to be shifting 30 degrees to the left. So if I'm going to be shifting this 30 degrees to the left, I'm going to label this a little bit differently. And what I know is that each step size is going to be 90 degrees. Okay, so I'm going to call this -30 degrees. And my next step is going to be at, well, -30 plus 90 is 60 degrees. So I'm going to call, well, this looks kind of messy. I'm going to do this. I'm going to call this -30 degrees so that this becomes 60 degrees, right? So you're not going to have uniform. It's hard to have uniform markings on the x-axis. And then my next marking is going to be at 150 degrees, right? I'm adding 90. And then my next one is going to be at 200.